What's good with it, you guys? It's your boy Chuck. Welcome to another episode of Chuck It Up. We back in the building. If you guys didn't see this has been here. And for those that are listening, I'm talking about my peace sign on my desk. Got that from Walmart. Appreciate Walmart. How much was this? I don't have the price on there. But anyways, I am back. And I apologize for the 2-week wait. I know you guys couldn't wait to hear the next episode of Chuck It Up. Please believe me, I didn't want to miss a week, especially after the Eagles, I guess you could say, snuck into the playoffs. So you know I didn't skip a week on purpose. Now, if the Eagles missed a week, I know I would have got messages saying, oh, well, the Eagles missed the playoffs, that's why he didn't make an episode. No. So there's no excuse. But we're back now. Before I get started on the show, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, as always, King of the Game Sports Media, the best in high school sports highlights. I missed the week because, as you guys know, I own sports media business called King of the Game. We were actually covering the All-American Bowl, so we were there all week. So if you guys haven't already, make sure you subscribe or make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at KOTG Media. Again, that's KOTG Media on Twitter and Instagram. Also, we need your subscriptions on YouTube. And you can just search up King of the Game and your boy will pop up. But again, best in high school sports highlights. If you know anyone that's looking for highlights for their child, any sport, make sure you hit up KOTG Media. You can also check them out online at kotgmedia.com. But, and I had a hard time trying to figure out the kickoff for the show. Again, it's been 2 weeks, so I don't even know where to start. But I don't know how I could not start. And to be honest, I don't know how I could not start with the beatdown of Alabama, where Clemson took them to the woodshed and hung 44 on the reigning champion, Alabama Crimson Tide. Nick Saban, the best, college coach ever, got outcoached. They got outplayed. Anything you could think of, Clemson did to Alabama, and it wasn't even close. And I was completely wrong about this game. Now, I could have came on and said, yeah, I called this, because I wasn't here last week, so I couldn't give my prediction. I thought Alabama was going to blow out Clemson, as did most of everyone else. I was actually going for Clemson because, I'm sick of, can't see teams win every year. Unless it's the Eagles, obviously, or any other team from Philly. But I'm sick of seeing Alabama win. I didn't anticipate the game to be a blowout. I thought Clemson had a chance to keep it close. But I didn't, in no situation or no scenario that I thought in my head that had Clemson winning. Clearly, I was wrong. I owe Clemson an apology. And I'll save that near the end. But anyways, Clemson drops Alabama on national TV for the national championship game, the college football playoffs, 44-16, led by freshman quarterback Trevor Lawrence. And again, I was wrong about Trevor Lawrence. And I owe him an apology as well. And I'll get to that a little bit later. I'm not going to forget about that. Trust me. But Trevor Lawrence showed up to ball. I'd watched majority of the game. I couldn't watch the beginning of the game thanks to ESPN's streaming service. ESPN app was down for the first 7 minutes of the game. So I was watching the ticker go from 7-0 Clemson, 7-7 Alabama, 14-7 Clemson. Probably one of the best openings to a national championship game ever. And ESPN had issues on the streaming front. So ESPN needs to figure that out. That's number one. Number two, Clemson, man, I was completely wrong about this game. Again, I don't even know why I didn't sit down and think about the game. If you look at Clemson's makeup of their team, minus the quarterback, they have everything you need to upset Alabama. Their defensive line was over Tua all game long. even though they ended up with 2 sacks, there was a lot more, or they ended up with 1 sack. There was a lot more hurries than that. They had 2 interceptions from Tua, obviously caused by the pressure. Tua was seeing ghosts in the pocket. So their defense obviously was ranked top 10 in the nation this year, but nobody knew how good they were because of the ACC competition, where I believe, their toughest competition might have been Boston College. So it was hard to get a gauge of how good their defense was when they were playing, pretty bad teams in the ACC. But then again, it was the teams that were put in front of them. And again, Clemson's defense is legit. So based off of that, you should have knew they had a shot. Again, I didn't, because to beat Alabama, for the most part, when you see Alabama lose, they usually lose to a team with a quarterback that is mobile. Now, I didn't think of Trevor Lawrence as a mobile quarterback, but after watching yesterday's game, he's a little bit more athletic than I thought he was. And this man, he has it. I don't know what it is, but he has it. Dude was standing in the pocket, taking hits, and delivering the ball. I thought that the offense catered to him to keep him out of trouble, to be a manager. Obviously, during the season, he was taking long shots, but again, we didn't get a gauge of that because of the ACC competition. But versus Notre Dame, he didn't look like this. And the reason why I thought they were going to get blown out was because of Trevor Lawrence being a true freshman, because he was going against Alabama, because under pressure, I didn't think that he would live up to, I didn't think under pressure that he would be able to deliver the goods. But man, was I wrong. Trevor Lawrence is the guy. Now, number one, I'm going to apologize to Trevor Lawrence a little bit later in the show, but I keep hearing people saying he's better than, they're projecting him to be the next Peyton Manning, the next Andrew Luck. I mean, let's let this guy win. Let's let him put some seasons together. All right, because they're losing defensive starters. The offense is still going to be stacked, so I still project him to put up numbers, but I just want to see consistency. Not to say he's not consistent, but again, it's one season, hell of a season, the first national championship in the college football playoff era where they were undefeated. Again, so Trevor Lawrence finished 20 of 32, 347, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks. I was almost sure that he was going to throw an interception, but I mean, Trevor Lawrence's weapons might be the best weapons in the nation. Justin Ross, the number 1 receiver from Alabama, obviously left out of the state of Alabama out of high school to go to Clemson, and he destroys them for 6 and a buck 53 and 1 touchdown, including that pass, that one-handed catch where Trevor Lawrence threw the ball. It was off. And you just see Ross go around the corner, snatch it with one hand, and just bring it in. I mean, you got Justin Ross, T. Higgins. I've seen him play. The man's big time. If he decides to come out next year, he's going to be a first-round pick. T. Higgins is a legit 6'4". He has 3 catches, 81 yards, 1 touchdown. Amari Rodgers, he came in the same class as T. Higgins. He's a slot receiver. He's also, Clemson's offense is stacked. And big credit to their offensive line. Nobody's going to give them credit, but Clemson's offensive line, they didn't keep Trevor Lawrence, they didn't keep him safe the whole game, but they kept him upright for the most part to make plays. And even when he was getting hit, he was delivering the ball, in stride, taking the shot on the chin and just delivering the rock. And that's to be honest, I didn't expect that out of a true freshman going against Alabama in the national championship game. I mean, that's a big ask for a true freshman. His first, national championship game. And, he's going against Alabama, the defending champs, which might, before the game, might have been thought of as the best Alabama team ever. One person that didn't deliver the goods, unfortunately, because I am a fan of Tua, He just didn't deliver the goods for Alabama. 22 of 34, 295, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Didn't start off the game well. Obviously, starting off the game with a pick 6. Not the tone you want to set for Alabama, but he showed enough toughness to come back in the next drive and throw a bomb for a touchdown. It was like a 60-yard bomb to Jerry Jeudy, who's also a solid receiver. He went for he went for 5 catches, $139, 1 touchdown. I mean, Jeudy, he's the man. And speaking of receivers, Alabama's not short of receivers either. Jerry Jeudy, Devonta Smith. I mean, these guys. I mean, obviously these teams are in the national championship game because of the talent they have, and one team showed up, the other one didn't. 44-16, Alabama, Clemson. And one conversation I've been hearing is Clemson elite? Are they in Alabama's level? Are they on Alabama's level? Well, in the last 4 years, if you think about it, everybody would think Alabama has been dominant and win national championships every year. In the last 4 years, Clemson has 2 national championships, and Alabama has 2 national championships. Obviously, the other national championship that Clemson won was with Deshaun Watson against Alabama. And this is the 3rd time they played in the last 4 years. And Clemson currently owns that record 2-1 in the national at least in the national championship. They played 3 out of the last 4 years in the national championship game. Clemson is winning that 2-1. And if you look at the last 4 years, if you look at the recruits that they're both bringing in, you can't say that Clemson is not in the same breath as Alabama as far as an elite level. It's not Alabama and everyone else. It's Alabama, Clemson, and then everybody else. Clemson is doing what they do recruiting. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, and you get all these guys on defense and offense, and I think some recruits will flock to Clemson just so they would rather beat Alabama than join them, if that makes sense. That's why you see players going to Georgia. And you have your top guys go to Alabama. They want to be part of that. They want to play for national championships. There's nothing wrong with that. But you do have some guys that are choosing to go to these other schools, Clemson's, your Georgias, Michigans, Ohio States, to go, or to the USCs of the world, to go to these schools to try to beat Alabama, to make a program great, not to join a program that's great, but to make a program great. And you got to give a lot of credit to Dabo Swinney for making this Clemson Tigers unit, this program, elite, arguably the best program in the nation at the moment. I mean, it should be. They blew out Alabama. It looked like, Alabama just didn't. They showed up pregame looking like they're ready to play, but as soon as that whistle blew, it was a boat race. Alabama didn't score in the second half. Got shut out in the second half, partly due, and I think the game was over once Nick Saban went for the fake field goal. I mean, it was a horrible fake field goal. I mean, you could have drew something up better in Madden than that. I mean, for those that play Madden, you have your field goal. I don't know if they still do the 3 plays. You got your field goal in the middle. You got your field goal where the quarterback runs, and then you got the field goal with the pass. No one ever picks the fake field goal where the backup quarterback runs. Usually you pick the fake field goal where the quarterback passes. Or, if you're not into fake field goals, you just put an offense out there and go for it on 4th down, because it was 4th and 6, and running a 3rd string quarterback up the middle with your kicker as the lead blocker. I mean, that they deserve to lose. They deserve to get blown out just for that call. If it's 4th and 6, I don't know why you don't put Tua out there. If you're going to go for it, at least put your best foot forward instead of trying to out-trick them, where Clemson wasn't even biting on that because they had layers defense. They damn near had the when they set up for the field goal, but they had their layers to protect for the pass or run or for the fake in general. And Alabama still ran the play. Nick Saban should have called a timeout, but they went through with it. Obviously, the play gets blown up. Nick Saban comes out after the game, says, "Hey, one of our players missed a block." I mean, he must have been talking about 5 guys, because there was five Clemson Tigers that blew that play up. So unless in that way he drew it up, one player had to block 5 guys, then yeah, he's right about that. But there were 5 guys that blew that play up. It might have been 6. I mean, everybody was there, and the play had no shot. I mean, he could have put Jalen Hurts out there to at least make it interesting. He put the 3rd-string quarterback out there, and clearly, obviously, didn't work. And that was the end of the game, at least from what I was able to see. Clemson should be number 1 ranked going into next season. They have a lot of returning stars. Their whole offense damn near is returning. Their defense, they're going to lose some. Obviously, they're going to lose a lot of the players on the defensive line, but Clemson recruits well enough on defense that they're going to just replenish. Similar to Alabama, Alabama has their offense is going to be returning for the most part. Najee Harris is going to be taking the reins of the lead back at Alabama. Not to mention Trey Sanders, the number 1 running back in the nation out of high school this year, is going to be going to Alabama. So I'm sure he will be getting carries as well with Najee Harris, who was also number 1 running back coming out of high school out of the Bay Area. Shout out to the Bay Area. But, I mean, again, Alabama and Clemson, they're going to keep replenishing. There's a couple teams that I think that are going to be in that conversation. Georgia's going to be in the conversation next year. I think Georgia could upset Alabama next year. And then, obviously, you have your Michigans, you have your Ohio States. Depending on what happens at Ohio State, Justin Fields, the number 1 quarterback coming out of high school last year, I think he was a dual threat, committed to Georgia, ended up transferring out because of Fromm at the end of the year, and then transfers to Ohio State, where Tate Martell was ready to take over the reins after the quarterback for Ohio State left. His name escapes my mind, but Tate Martell was supposed to be the next quarterback to come up, and Justin Fields coming in. So I'm sure Tate Martell is sweating. Don't get me wrong, Tate Martell is a competitor, so he's going to stay there, and he's ready for the competition. But Justin Fields is, that's tough. Justin Fields he could run, he could pass. I mean, you could make an argument he's a better passer than Tate Martell, but we'll let the spring talk for that. First, Justin Fields needs to go through this appeal process to see if he's eligible to even play in the fall, or if he has to sit out a year. So those are a couple of teams you got to watch out for, and USC, which I'll get into a little bit more as they go, because USC did get a lot of offensive talent this weekend. If you guys are watching the All-American Bowl, but that's the kickoff. Now going to the 1st and 10, because this was another story I was thinking about starting off the show with, but since Clemson and Alabama national championship, I figured you start with that because, I mean, it's really the biggest story. As far as NFL, not talking about playoffs, the Cardinals ended up hiring Kliff Kingsbury, the coach who was fired from Texas Tech a couple months ago. So here's the story. So that's the story. Kliff Kingsbury gets hired as the head coach to the Arizona Cardinals. And the reason why this is a big deal is because Kliff Kingsbury has 6 seasons with Texas Tech, which was one of the most prolific offenses year in, year out while he was the head coach. He has an eye for quarterback talent. I mean, Baker Mayfield, Pat Mahomes, Davis Webb, at least in college. Davis Webb in college. Don't get it twisted with Davis Webb in New York with the Giants, because he was terrible there. But Davis Webb transferred out because of Pat Mahomes, so he went to Cal after Jared Goff had left. But Kliff Kingsbury, in his 6 seasons with Texas Tech, his record was 35-40. He wasn't even 500. probably historically one of the worst defenses in a 6-year stretch that you could get. I mean, these guys are giving up 60, 70-point games every week. I mean, if you're a defensive player, you don't want to play at Texas Tech, especially a defensive back, because you're getting killed, you're getting burnt. I remember when they came out here to Arizona, and the score was like a basketball score. I think ASU dropped 70 on them, and one of ASU's running backs, Kalen Balaj, actually broke NCAA's record with 8 rushing touchdowns. So that's how bad Texas Tech's defense is. But anyways, he gets fired. So Kingsbury gets fired from Texas Tech in November, and then he gets a job at USC as the offensive coordinator. Now, before he gets a job at USC as the offensive coordinator, I believe that there would have been interest in having Kliff Kingsbury come to the NFL as the offensive coordinator. He decided to go to USC. I don't blame him for that, because USC was probably one of the best fits for him. Obviously, USC has offensive talent. They got a young quarterback, JT Daniels, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the receiver, and then they loaded up on receivers again this past weekend with 2 5-star receivers and another 4-star receiver coming to SC next year. Kliff Kingsbury was sitting pretty nice, but I think he used this as a platform to where he's like, okay, I'm safe. This is a great job for an offensive coordinator. And I think that USC probably would have been grooming him to, if Helton got fired, Kliff Kingsbury probably would have been the next guy in line. But there was too much NFL interest for Kliff Kingsbury. Teams were requesting to interview him. USC was blocking those interviews because he was under contract with USC. Eventually, the story came out that he was no longer on USC's directory. The rumor came out that he bought out of his contract with USC so he could take the interviews. And obviously it paid off because he got hired by the Arizona Cardinals. And now he's an NFL head coach. Now, if you asked me if he was a good head coaching candidate for the NFL, I would have said no. College, yes. Offensive coordinator for college, probably one of the best in the nation. Offensive coordinator in the NFL, he would be, I believe he would have been a very good offensive coordinator in the NFL, which would have put him in line for a head coaching job in the NFL, in 2, maybe 3 years. Obviously, if you guys listen to my podcast, I wanted the Eagles to hire Kliff Kingsbury as the offensive coordinator, but there's no way that he was going to be the head coach of the Eagles, because we got Doug Peterson, as some of the Eagle fans, not me, like to call Dougie P after winning the Super Bowl, but he hasn't earned that nickname with me yet. Maybe if he wins another Super Bowl, then I'll give him that nickname, but as of right now, it's Doug Peterson, and that's what it is. But Kliff Kingsbury, this is a high-risk, high-reward hire for the Arizona Cardinals, because Kliff Kingsbury was a failed college coach, 35-40. Kliff Kingsbury should be giving a percentage of his check to Sean McVay, because it seems like NFL teams now, GMs, are looking for young, offensive-minded coaches that are good with quarterbacks. You get your Sean McVays. Green Bay just hired another young coach, which I thought was a mistake. But you're seeing NFL teams target these younger, offensive-minded coaches, because Lincoln Riley, his name was mixed in Lincoln Riley, the head coach for the Oklahoma Sooners, his name was mixed in as having some NFL interest, but he shut that down by extending his contract with Oklahoma, which I think was a good idea. I mean, he's basically that guy when it comes to Oklahoma. He can do whatever he wants over there. So Lincoln Riley is set at Oklahoma, but he would have got a lot of interest from NFL teams had he been interested in head coaching for the NFL. Not to say that Lincoln Riley won't entertain that idea, a few years from now, but as of right now, he's sticking at Oklahoma, which I think is a good move. Kliff Kingsbury, I think I think this is a risky move for both the Cardinals and Kliff Kingsbury. More so for the Cardinals, obviously, because, again, Kliff Kingsbury is a failed coach. You fired your coach, Wilks, after one season, which was, obviously the wrong thing to do. I do like Kliff Kingsbury, but I don't think that Steve Wilks should have got fired from Arizona. Yes, the team got worse when he got hired, but at the same time, he didn't bring any of it. He didn't have his guys in there. He had 1 year. And as I always say, if a coach gets fired after 1 year, after just getting hired, it says more about the organization than it does about the coach. So if you guys look at the one-and-done coaches in the NFL, you'll see terrible team, terrible organization. As you guys know, the Browns are on there, Jacksonville's on there, the Buffalo Bills are on there, Arizona Cardinals are on there. So you're going to see terrible team, terrible organization, all the way down. Oakland Raiders are on there. So it says more about the organization than it does the coach. Ideally, you want to give your coach at least a 3-year plan to get his guys in there and establish something. After 1 year, you fire them. Again, it says more about your organization. You don't know what the hell you're doing. But in the midst of firing Wilks, they hire Kliff Kingsbury, which, again, high risk, high reward. Kliff Kingsbury, great offensive mind, young. I believe he's 39, young head coach. He has young offensive talent in Josh Rosen, Christian Kirk, which I believe he helped get Christian Kirk to Texas A&M when he was coaching there, I believe. But I think they have a nucleus. They have a franchise quarterback. They have a few weapons on offense, David Johnson, Kirk, but they need a little bit more. And I think that Kliff Kingsbury is a good guy to groom Josh Rosen. And I think he can make this offense prolific. Now, don't get me wrong. If the Cardinals suffer, I'm okay with that. I'm not a Cardinal fan. They cheated us in the NFC Championship game in 2008. There was a pass interference on Kevin Curtis by ex-receiver Rod Hood, the corner on 4th down, which ended up letting the Cardinals go to the Super Bowl just to lose to the Steelers that year, where the Eagles would have put a whooping on the Steelers in the Super Bowl for their first Super Bowl. And then last year we went our second Super Bowl, but I'm not even going to talk about that. So the more games the Cardinals lose, the better, because I can't stand the Cardinals. But Kliff Kingsbury, I think this would be good. I honestly thought a better fit would have been the New York Jets, but at this point in time, I think Kliff Kingsbury is going to be okay. I think that the Cardinals need to invest and try to find definitely an experienced defensive coordinator, because you don't want him to bring in one of his own guys. I wouldn't trust that. So I was thinking Todd Bowles, but it looks like Todd Bowles has already accepted the job to be the next defensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, with his boy Bruce Arians, a former Cardinals coach. They work together in Arizona. And then another guy who might not want a job, I mean, he's pretty comfortable right now, Rex Ryan, is another experienced guy who is a good defensive coordinator. Head coach, terrible. Defensive coordinator, good. Defensive mind, you need somebody who's experienced, somebody that can control the defense. Kliff Kingsbury doesn't need to worry about that. I think the Cardinals need to take charge in finding a defensive coordinator. Obviously, somebody that Kliff Kingsbury is comfortable with having. Not somebody that's going to undermine him, or somebody that's going to try to control him, but somebody to work with him. He's going to need an experienced defensive coordinator and maybe an experienced offensive coordinator. But Kliff Kingsbury, he specializes in offense. So to have somebody who's experienced with NFL offense to at least give some type of feedback would be nice. But again, Kliff Kingsbury is an offensive mind, so I guess they're not really that pressed to have an experienced NFL offensive coordinator, but it would be nice. I mean, somebody like a John DeFilippo, even though he got fired by the Vikings this year, I think he did wrong. Kirk Cousins is, I mean, who the hell is going to help Kirk Cousins turn into a franchise quarterback? John DeFilippo was damn near the scapegoat for what happened there. And to be honest, if the Cardinals don't hire him, I do want the Eagles to hire John DeFilippo as the offensive coordinator. He was our quarterbacks coach last year, and had it not been for Josh McDaniels with the whole Colts situation, he would have been the offensive coordinator this year for the Eagles, and we would have been all right. Other names I was thinking about was Mike Kafka, the quarterback coach for the Chiefs. He used to play for the Eagles, and obviously he's the quarterback coach for the Chiefs and is doing a hell of a job with Pat Mahomes in his first year starting. So I'm sure his name will be brought up. He's a young guy that's used to play in the NFL as a quarterback and played with some solid quarterbacks with his time with the Eagles. Also being groomed by Andy Reid. Andy Reid thought enough of him to bring him on as a quarterback coach in Kansas City. Not an assistant job, like the legitimate quarterbacks coach. And then another one, if you guys watch the commercials, now I'm not picking him because he's on the commercial, but Joe Lombardi, the quarterback coach for the Saints. Obviously, you guys know Drew Brees' success. And Joe Lombardi, who is related, he's in the Lombardi family. He might be a hot offensive coordinator candidate this offseason. So those are some names I was thinking of. Obviously, there might be more, there are more, but those are just some names I came up with at the top of my head. But then as far as long-term plan for Kliff Kingsbury, you would want to hope this is a long-term plan. You don't want to hope that this is, exactly what happened to Steve Wilkes, to where they give him 1 year and he's gone. I think that since they allowed him to buy out his contract at USC, they're giving him time, which they should have given Wilkes time, but they're giving Kingsbury time. They're going to give him time to build a team, and hopefully at least 3 years. I mean, Chip Kelly got 3 years from the Eagles. 3 seasons minus a game. His last season, he was fired the game before week 17, so he didn't get to see the end of the season. So that's Chip Kelly though. But shout out to Kliff Kingsbury. I mean, dude is he's a hot offensive coordinator with USC. I'm glad that he was out. He's out of the Pac-12, because him at USC with the weapons and the quarterbacks and everything they have at USC, they would have wreaked havoc on the Pac-12, and that would have been bad for every defensive coordinator in the Pac-12. So I'm sure every defensive coordinator can now wipe the sweat off their heads in the Pac-12 because Kliff Kingsbury is out. Now, down to second down. Wildcard weekend. You guys know I'm starting with the Eagles, Bears. And again, I'm going to try to go through these, but let me take my time with this one. Eagles, Bears, 16-15. Game ended on a missed field goal by my boy, Cody Parkey, my guy. And to be honest, you guys, I do like Cody Parkey. For those that don't know, he used to play with the Eagles. He was a Pro Bowler with the Eagles in his first year. He ended up getting injured and getting beat out in the next year in camp. I didn't want to see him go. I thought he was a good kicker. Man, missed the field goal, but it ended up being a block. They ended up counting as a block because it was tipped by Trayvon Hester. So, I mean, you could take a little bit of blame off of Cody Parkey, but, I mean, it's a sucky situation for Cody Parkey because, man, the kickers, when they miss a field goal, especially in these type of circumstances, I mean, they need to be, they didn't have some type of protection, because there was Bear fans that definitely weren't happy with him. As you could tell, I wouldn't have been happy with him, but I mean, some people have been, sending him death threats and stuff like that. And obviously that's not cool. But Cody Parkey, he'll be back. I still think he's a good kicker. Unfortunate situation. Doug Peterson called the timeout as the perfect time. He called the timeout before Cody kicked the first field goal, which went in. The second one got tipped that did the double doink off of the uprights and hit the upright and then the crossbar. So I'd never seen that before, but I was happy that it happened. Eagles win 16-15 at Soldier Field. monsters of the Midwest, as they like to say. And Nick Foles had a decent game. Definitely not his best game. This might have been his worst playoff performance ever, minus his game against the Falcons last year. He went 25 of 40, 266, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. 2 interceptions were terrible. Just bad passes. One of them should have been a pass interference, but it was far enough from the receiver to where they couldn't call pass interference. So yeah, Nick Foles had a couple of bad throws. I know he wishes he could have those back. Eagles obviously didn't do great in the running game. Bears are the number one scoring defense in football. The leading the leading rusher was Darren Sproles. He had 13 carries, 21 yards. So that's a 1.6 yards per carry average, which is not great and not good at all. Golden Tate finally. The Golden Tate was more of a factor in this game as he got more targets. Ended the game with 5 catches, 46 yards, 1 touchdown, and that 1 touchdown being on 4th down in the red zone. That was the go-ahead touchdown for the Eagles to put them up 16-15 before they went for the 2-point conversion and failed. So it's good to see that Golden Tate's getting more involved in the offense. We're going to need him next week versus the Saints. I'll get into that game a little bit later during our 3rd down segment where I'll give my predictions. But Nick Foles has been spreading the ball around. They've been pretty balanced on offense. For the most part. And the defense has been playing lights out, man. The defensive line through these last 4 weeks, the defensive line has been playing great. Secondary's been playing great. Rasul Douglas, got to give him credit. Nigel Bradham took over in this game. Avonte Maddox should have had about 2 picks, one of them being a pick 6. He dropped both of them. And Avonte Maddox probably is the X factor right now. I didn't anticipate him to be a good outside corner. The dude is on a good day, 5'9", playing outside corner, and it's just, he reminds me of a young Asante Samuel. Not to say he's better than Asante Samuel. Not to say that he's going to be, a Hall of Famer or do the things that Asante Samuel did, but his game reminds me of Asante Samuel. Avonte Maddox is a better tackler, or more willing tackler, should I say. But he should have had 2 interceptions. He plays pretty aggressive, which caused him to get beat a couple times late in the game, which comes with the territory with an aggressive corner. Again, he's a 4th-round pick. He's a rookie. Some of the plays he was making, this guy is going to be legit. And honestly, I didn't think much of him when the Eagles drafted him in the 4th round out of the pit. But he's proved me wrong this season. I have no problem with that. Everybody could be wrong once. But, yeah, Avonte Maddox is a flat-out baller. Trey Sullivan, that bum, he dropped the interception in the end zone. Mitch Trubisky threw it right to him, and he just dropped it. But, again, defensive line, the team is starting to get healthier, all right? And they're starting to play smarter. The defensive line, obviously, my boy Jernigan has been back, but with him, Hester, Fletcher Cox, Michael Bennett, Brandon Graham, and the rest of those guys, Haloti Nada, the defensive line is playing at a high level right now. And to beat the Saints, they're going to have to play at a high level. And Timmy Jernigan, Fletcher Cox are going to have to get pressure on Drew Brees right up the middle. And I do think that they can do that. Timmy Jernigan didn't play in that first game, but Timmy Jernigan is a really good defensive tackle, so I anticipate him to have a good showing against the Saints, because the only way you're going to beat the Saints is if there's pressure in Drew Brees' face. The Cowboys showed that when New Orleans went to Dallas on a Thursday night, and Dallas was just whooping New Orleans because that pressure was right in Drew Brees' face. Pressure in a quarterback's face right up the middle, that works wonders. And the Eagles are going to be doing that to Drew Brees next week. Mitch Trubisky had a solid game, 26 of 43, 303, 1 touchdown. I don't think Mitch Trubisky is all that great. I do think he showed me a lot in this game. Obviously, he should have threw 3 interceptions, but at the same time, when the game was on the line in the fourth quarter, this guy made some big time throws and put him in position to win the game. It's just that the field goal got blocked and it missed. Mitch Trubisky, I think he showed me something. I think that he has the potential to be a franchise quarterback. He needs to clean up a few of those throws. Again, he throws up the ball too much just as a prayer, but I think Mitch Trubisky is a solid quarterback that can be a franchise guy, and the Bears drafted him second overall, so they will need him to be a franchise guy. But Khalil Mack was pretty much neutralized by my boy Jason Peters, the Hall of Famer. He made a couple plays, but for the most part, he didn't really see Nick Foles. Maybe a couple late hits on Nick Foles, a little elbow here and there. Allen Robinson is showing that he was a good pickup for the Bears. 10 receptions, $143, 1 touchdown. He was the one that was killing us, that put them in the field goal range. So Bears, tough season. Eagles, the magic continues with Nick Foles, and I'm excited to see the Eagles play in New Orleans next week. And I'll get into that again in the third down segment, but I know we're getting a little bit long on the show. Let me get through these games, these reviews. Dallas and Seattle, 24-22. I knew this game was over when Sebastian Janikowski, I believe, pulled his damn hamstring trying to kick a 57-yard field goal before halftime. But when I seen that, I knew it was over, because when you want to win close games, you have to have a kicker. You have to have a kicker. And without a kicker, it's damn near impossible to win close games. I mean, they had a damn guy doing drop kicks in there not much teams, rarely does a team carry 2 kickers. But yeah, I think Sebastian Janikowski, it's time for him to hang it up. I mean, he's pretty old, so maybe the age might have something to do with it. But man ended up pulling something on that long kick, and it didn't look good. And after that, Seattle had no choice but to go for 2-point conversions every time they scored. But Russell Wilson didn't have the best game offensively. I think the play calling was terrible. Seattle pretty much gave this game to Dallas. Dallas is lucky that the Eagles won, because they would have been going to New Orleans. But now Dallas is going to the Rams, where they think they're just going to run over the Rams. And I'm not sure about that. So Dallas wins 24-22. Dak Prescott, a decent game, nothing to brag about. Ezekiel Elliott, again, carrying the load of the offense. 26 carries, 137, 1 touchdown. Amari Cooper, 7 catches, 106. So they had some success offensively versus Seattle. I'm curious to see how they do against the Rams. I hope they lose against the Rams, but you never know. The Colts versus Texans. This one probably would have been an easy one for me to call. I don't think anyone would have anticipated the Texans beating the Colts. The Colts were on a hot streak. The Texans were, obviously, they weren't as hot as the Colts going into the playoffs after losing to the Eagles. But, yeah, I think Andrew Luck is finally finding his stride. He didn't have his best game, but 19 for 32, 222, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Marlon Mack's going to be that guy. He's going to have to be the guy that carries them to the promised land. If they want to beat Kansas City, Marlon Mack's going to have to have another big game. He went 24 carries, 148, 1 touchdown. And again, the Colts are rocking and rolling. People think it's offense, but defensively, this team is a nightmare. They're tough. They're physical. They're very stingy when it comes to yards. And I think Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to have some problems with the Colts coming into town for sure. And for the Texans, they unfortunately lost. They lost one of their receivers. What's his name? In the Eagle game, they traded for him. They traded a 4th-round pick for him from Denver, and Demaryius Thomas, actually, sorry, that's his name. Demaryius Thomas, he got hurt during the Eagles game, ended up tearing something in his leg, so he was out for the season. And, they needed help on the opposite side of DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, Kiki Cutie, he had some success, 11 catches, 110, 1 touchdown, but at the same time, you need more weapons because, once DeAndre Hopkins had 5 catches, 37 yards, I mean, they were keying in on him. They were making sure if the Texans beat him, it wasn't going to be because of DeAndre Hopkins. So the Colts go into the Chiefs next. And then lastly, the last game I'm going to cover for the second down is the Chargers versus Ravens. 23-17. People were calling for Joe Flacco to be put in because of all the fumbles and bad throws by Lamar Jackson. I think that John Harbaugh did a good job as far as keeping Lamar Jackson in and not going back to Flacco. I think that would have sent the wrong message to Jackson. But, I think the Ravens, man, they're a tough team. They're older on defense, but offensively, I mean, they have Lamar Jackson. John Harbaugh's going to be staying there, so they have some things to work on. But I don't know if they get back to the playoffs next year. I think it was a little bit surprising for me that they made it this year, but that came from a weak division. They did go 10-6, but Chargers will be going to the Patriots next week. Again, Chargers beat the Ravens 23-17. And then lastly, UFC, I want to get through this real quick as well. UFC, Nunez versus Cyborg. Your boy called the knockout. I said it on here. You can rewind the tapes. I called it in the third round. Now, I was just a little bit off. Cyborg got knocked out within 51 seconds of the fight starting. I'm not going to get into the details of it. They started slugging as soon as the bell rang. And Cyborg was catching more than she could handle. And, like I said, Manny Nunez has dynamite in her gloves because Cyborg, as soon as Cyborg got hit, she was wobbled. It looked like she was nervous. She was ready in fight or flight mode. And Manny Nunez finished her out by KOing her within 51 seconds. Crazy fight. And, it was exciting. And again, I called the knockout. So next time, listen to your boy. John Jones versus Gustafson. I thought this was going to go to a decision. John Jones ended up stopping the fight in the third round, where John Jones just hit him with ground and pound. Gustafson was on one leg basically because John Jones kicked his leg to oblivion, but he couldn't stand. And as soon as he took him to the ground, there was no way he's getting back up. He just kept getting hit ground and pound, and they ended up stopping the fight for a third round stoppage. Going to John Bones Jones. So shout out to John Bones. Next, personal foul, and I will have a flag coming soon. But personal foul on me. What I got wrong. I was wrong about Trevor Lawrence. So again, I owe him an apology. I was completely wrong about this man. I've seen him play. I wasn't impressed at the Army Bowl, but man, this dude. I was fighting to give him credit throughout the season. Again, he's had a great offensive line. He had great receivers, and he was playing average competition. So it was hard for me to give him credit. But the way he whooped Alabama, the way he played against Alabama, you can't dispute that. And I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong, but are you willing to admit when you're wrong? So I'm wrong about Trevor Lawrence, and I owe him an apology. He's a national champion, true freshman, beat Alabama, took some shots, took their best shots, and the man still delivered the goods. So, he's legit. I'll lay off of Trevor Lawrence because he's earned that. And nextly, I was wrong about Oklahoma, but I was right about them beating the spread. I said Oklahoma had a chance to beat Alabama. Man, they were down 28-0 to start the game, and the spread didn't look good, but they ended up covering they ended up beating the 14-point spread. I think they lost by 12. So I was wrong about Oklahoma having a chance against Alabama because they got ran off of the field. Third down segment. Again, I'm gonna be going through these divisional round of the NFL playoffs. First game, Eagles, Saints. I think that the Nick Foles magic continues, but I'll get into that a little bit later. Second game, Cowboys versus Rams. I have the Cowboys winning 20-19 in LA. I just don't think that Jared Goff and that offense are ready for the Cowboys defense. Patriots versus Chargers. I have the Patriots winning 27-24 at Gillette Field. And then Chiefs, Colts. I have that prediction in my Hail Mary. And getting into that, we're going to fourth down, my Hail Mary segment. The Colts will beat the Chiefs in Kansas City this week, 38-35. Indianapolis Colts over the number 1 seed Kansas City Chiefs. And I have my Eagles, the Foles magic. This magic that's flowing around Philly is going to be going into into the Superdome and beating the Saints 34-31, where the Saints embarrassed us by beating us by 40 and running up the score, throwing a touchdown on fourth down, a 40-yard touchdown on fourth down against the Eagles. We remember that. We remember that. We remember you run up the score. We remember that, Drew Brees, Sean Payton, Alvin Kamara. We remember that. And trust me, this game will not be a blowout. This game will be a lot closer than people think. Everybody thinks I'm saying that the Eagles will have a close game with the Saints because I'm an Eagles fan. Now, I'm picking them because I'm an Eagles fan. But the game will be close because the Eagles are a different team right now. They have a lot of their players back. Darren Sproles didn't play in that first one. Timmy Jernigan didn't play in that first one. Jason Peters got hurt in that game in the first one. Sidney Jones got hurt in that first one. Avante Maddox got hurt in that first one. Yeah, we were handicapped at that time, and the team quit. They flat out quit. Now they don't have quit. They don't have any quit in them. So the Eagles, make sure you guys watch out for that. That's my Hail Mary segment. I don't have any 2-minute offense or any quick takes today, so I will go into my touchdown. My touchdown to give a shout out to a player. Shout out to my boy Cody Parkey. Make sure you keep your head up. People were creating fake accounts for Cody Parkey's Venmo because Eagle fans were sending Cody Parkey money for missing a field goal. This man has a family. People, you can't be sending him death threats. He's an NFL kicker. You know, people miss. I mean, the thing was tipped. I mean, if anything, his offensive line that was blocking in front of him shouldn't have let anybody, penetrate to get a hand on the ball. So, shout out to Cody Parkey. He started off with the Eagles. He helped us get into the next round. But again, I mean, you got to remember, this guy's an athlete. You got a family. So sending him death threats and all that stuff. The Bears have more ways to win this game rather than just kicking that field goal. There was several other opportunities that they had to win the game. So big shout out to Cody Parkey. Keep your head up, man. You're going to have success wherever that may be in the NFL. And then king of the game, so players, the best performance of the last 2 weeks, got to give it to Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he's been in several segments I've been talking about, but Trevor Lawrence, again, this man showed up against Alabama. I couldn't believe what I was watching. The man was taking hits and throwing the ball on the money. The man did not look shook. He didn't look like he was sweating at all. He looked like he was in the zone, almost that same zone that I seen Foles last year versus the Patriots in the Super Bowl. It didn't look like anything could faze him. He's just making those throws. He was being gutsy. He was being aggressive, and that's what you have to do. You can't just bow down to Alabama. You got to go right at them. And Alabama's corners got exposed because Trevor Lawrence was throwing right at him. I mean, he did have those receivers, but he was throwing it. He wasn't afraid. And then Clemson's defense, I mean, they were all over Tua. And, that defensive line were making plays, whether it be in the run game, the pass game. All those fourth downs got blown up by Clemson's defensive line. That defense showed up. Their defensive backs, I owe them an apology as well because I thought they were terrible. They opened the game up with a pick six, and everybody knew that they weren't playing. So big shout out to Clemson's defense. And yeah, Clemson national championships. Trevor Lawrence, I can't say anything bad about that man. He delivered the goods. But always remember, you guys are listening to Chuck It Up channel. Make sure you guys download the Anchor app if you want to get the instant notification when these podcasts go live. Download the Anchor app, ANCHOR. You can also download and subscribe to this channel on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcast app you guys listen to. Make sure you subscribe to your boy. If you do it on the Anchor app, you're able to leave me messages to where I can put you on the show, or I could actually have you guys subscribe to the channel. Donate $1 or $2 here every month. If not, if you guys can't donate, that's cool. Your support and your listens are all we need. But make sure you guys do subscribe to the podcast. Tell people that are interested in sports that might like this podcast to subscribe to the podcast. We got some exciting things coming pretty soon. We'll be doing our live streaming by the end of the month. The equipment's coming in, so make sure you guys check that out. And we'll also be having our other segments. So it's not just going to be sports, but we're going to have our other segments where we have people in for interviews talking about business or life. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Make sure you guys continue to support the channel. Make sure you guys, call me up and let me know what you want me to talk about. If you want to get sunned on some football, or if you want me to talk about more basketball, baseball, or whatever, let me know that as well. But always remember that action turns knowledge into power, and I'll see you guys in the next podcast.